You are
Thank
welcome.
you for saying yes and being willing to share with our audience WIFERSATIONs in regards to such an important topic, and a topic that is often not, well, it's spoken about, but it's not necessarily something that people feel comfortable talking about.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And then some are going to say, why did I choose this particular topic for WIFERSATIONs? Because I believe wives and women who are in relationship, we go through everything. And
Everything.
and it is so unfair to present a lopsided view of what it takes for a woman to be in a relationship or to be married. I think it's unfortunate, because then you have those who may be experiencing things that we never talk about. So then they feel alone and they feel isolated. And so I appreciate you, Ms. LaVerne, in helping me to open up the blinds to so many.
That's a good way of putting it. Yes.
So welcome, Ms. LaVerne Badger.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I love this platform because it does speak on, your platform speaks on not just the fluff and the lovey stuff of marriage. And so I've been married, not to my abuser, so I was able to get into a positive relationship. So I've been married for 16 years. And again, nobody ever tells, my stepping stone was, as long as he wasn't abusing me, I was going to be able to stick out pretty much anything, right? But then abuse comes in different forms. And so people, women and men, they're in these relationships, marriages, and they think that there's not supposed to ever be anything that happens. And we know that that's just not true. And even if we're in an argument, there are still bad and good ways to argue. You know, there's bad and good ways to disagree with each other. And I think your platform is showcasing that marriage is not perfect, but here are some things that to look for and that we can share with one another. Because like I said, I didn't grow up in a family of women who were married. My grandparents were married, but that was it. My cousins, my aunts, all of them, they weren't married. They had boyfriends or they had men in their lives, but no one was married. And so it just had a different, so I wasn't that little girl who was dreaming of the white picket fence and the big wedding and stuff, because I just wasn't exposed to it. So, but yeah, great platform.
That's important that you said that, because so often, because I was one, I dreamed of it, but I believe that I dreamed of the perfect family, which I don't even know where that came from.
Right.
But I dreamed of the perfect family because I didn't have two parents in my household. So, you just never know why people feel the way they feel, why women feel the way they feel, because it does start at the root, at the bottom, at the foundation, from when you are a child, and then it takes on from there. Now, I know, just because I know you, I know that you are an advocate in regards to domestic violence.
Yeah. But
you're not just an advocate.
Yeah.
You are one who experienced it in a great way. And I wanted you just to talk about some of your experiences. And I wanted to highlight the fact that, first of all, you have a book.
Yes.
You have a book. And towards the end of our conversation, I want you to talk about how, so many can get this book, because I think it's a good read. But it's also something to make you reflect on how you are in relationship, and it helps you to look at things. And when something is not right or irregular, you're not crazy. You're not crazy.
Right.
So you have this book, and it's called Overcoming the Darkness, Surviving Domestic Violence. Now, as I was preparing to talk to you, I looked at let me see. Oh yeah, I looked at some information. It says 1.3 million women are going through this every year.
Yeah.
which is something. And then second of all, it said every 9 seconds, I don't know if that's accurate up to date, but every 9 seconds, a woman is assaulted.
Yes, around the country.
Jesus, that is really, really something. And it hit me because we're active, we're visible, we're always around, but you don't know what's going on behind closed.
Right. And so those numbers that you read off, those are numbers that people can count.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the women who don't report, those women who have not talked about their experience. So those numbers will continue to rise because it's considered a silent killer. Because domestic abuse in itself is one of those things that you internalize to say that if I'm going through that, that must be something I'm doing wrong, or I'm provoking that person to do, or why do I stay? So there must be something wrong with me that I'm staying in a relationship where somebody hurts me, or is abusive to me. So then, of course, we don't want to talk to anybody about it because people who don't understand it will judge you. And they judge you because, and I hate judgmental people. However, judgment is natural. It's a natural instinct for us to have our opinion put upon anybody that we're talking about or observing, or they're sharing their experiences. So that particular experience, to say that I'm a victim of a domestic abuse in any of its capacities, I don't want to talk about it because I just don't want that person to know. I don't want my coworkers to know. I don't want my boss to know because I don't want to get fired. I don't want my mama to know because she gonna be up in an uproar and she's gonna feel like she wants me to leave and I ain't ready to leave. And what I say to people and family and friends who may know someone who's experienced domestic abuse and violence is not to judge, be there, and understand that when whatever advice you're giving them, whatever love that you're sharing them, it's not them rejecting you and your help. It's them not necessarily knowing the tools to mentally get them out of a space that has been created over time. You know, it's almost like like you're in a trance, like this is not healthy. You know, you're not happy. You know that this is wrong, but there's always that little piece that is keeping hope alive, because your abuser doesn't one day wake up. Right. You don't wait one day, you met him, you're dating, in the first and second dates, he's abusing you. It is a process that they get you to mentally to sustain the mental and physical abuse that victims endure. And so because it took that much time to get you there and to love that person, it's going to take you just as much time to undo what you have been trained to do. And so I say, all the time, because I was in an abusive relationship so young, is that my abuser trained me to be the woman he wanted me to be. And so I didn't even know who I wanted to be, but I knew who I thought he wanted me to be. And although that still wasn't enough, it still didn't stop the abuse. It still didn't stop what he was doing to me, because as I learned later, is that domestic abuse is about the abuser, the control. It's about control. And it has nothing. There's nothing that I essentially can do to keep a person from abusing me. That person has to do it. It's
really, really something, because as you're talking about it, it definitely resonates, because when I, of course, read your book, and of course from knowing different situations, and also understanding being in toxic relationships, it starts off like with manipulation. You know what I'm saying? It's so subtle.
It doesn't feel like it.
It doesn't feel like it. It's so subtle. And it's so amazing how you can see a snake, but if the that's doesn't hiss or stick out its tongue, it's just moving really slow, and
you're like, oh, that's he pretty.
It got
Oh,
pretty,
the
some of them are
pattern
definitely.
of the snake is
Yeah,
gorgeous.
it's gorgeous. And,
Yep.
and there's something that desensitizes you to the fact that it's still a snake. And
Yep.
I don't want to tell the whole story, but I do want you to share as much as you can. And then, of course, encourage people to get the book. But I want to say this, in what I read, I saw manipulation. I saw mental control, emotional control before, I saw the actual physical violence.
Yep.
And I think that's important to say, because when people hear this and when they see this or when they hear about different things, you said it best, you cannot judge because your feelings are in there. And a lot of times it's not that you want to leave the person, you just want them to stop
the
doing
behavior
what they're doing.
to stop.
Yep.
Yes,
you want
just
the behavior,
want the behavior to stop.
So you really, like you said, have to reprogram yourself to accept, like, it might not stop. So now I got to look at this person totally different.
Right.
Which it's like, it's deprogramming and then reprogramming yourself, which takes time.
Yes.
I want you to tell me about, and the fact is you were young. So some of that is understood too, because you were young. You didn't know.
Right.
I want you to tell me. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was, I moved here from Illinois when I was about, I was about 12 years old. 12, 13 years old. And I met the abuser shortly after, my kid's father, shortly after that in school. And so he was charming. He was cute. He was like, it was a lot of girls at that time. Like, he really had his choice. But then I think I was kind of like some fresh meat, and he pursued me a little harder, and I clung to that. Like, I was just like, he made me feel beautiful. He made me feel special. He called all the time, those things. So it was a lot of that whining and dining, so to speak, as a teenager, as teenagers can do. Very attentive. Then it started to change. The change was, you need to be home, go straight home after school, and call me. Where were you over the weekend? I couldn't reach you over the weekend because there's no cell phones and stuff. So, you had to be at a house to call, from the house or wherever. So it became, well, when you get to your auntie's house, you call me from your auntie's house. It just couldn't be, I'm going to my auntie's house and I'll talk to you 3-4 hours later. So it was all these different check-in points. I wasn't even looking at it in a negative way. I was looking
it looked
at
like
it
he cared, don't he? Like, oh, he really want to know where I'm at.
He cares. He wants to know where I'm at. He wants to spend his time with me. And that's why I'm so special. He wants, and if friends, then it started, okay, friends. Now I can't really hang out with my friends, but he has a problem with every friend. He has a problem with every cousin or something that I'm hanging out with, but it doesn't come off as, stop hanging out with your cousin. The manipulation is that it feels like it's your decision. Well, I stopped talking to her because she was jealous about our relationship. But it was because of the stuff he was putting in my head, like, she ain't really a good friend. Your cousin is hating on us. She is into things that we not into. We trying to have a house and raise our family, and she in the street, she clubbing and stuff. And so he put it in such a way where I felt like the decision was mine and in the best interest of my family and relationship to get rid of that person. And before I knew it, it was just being him. And then when I started to say, okay, I miss my family, or I want to call my family, then it became a problem. And then the control progressed. So if I'm giving some pushback and I'm not agreeing with something, now the abuse has to be a little bit more aggressive to be able to control me.
That's powerful.
And I remember the very first fight was where one of the very first, he slapped me in the doorway of my mother's house, and we had our first child, and we were arguing about some girl, and he slapped me, and I just was like, did he just slap me? And, you know, because we had argued before, but he had never hit me. And then he had snatched me up against the wall, and then he left. And before the night was over, he was calling and apologizing. And I had to fix my face, and I was hiding in the corner trying to fix my face, because I knew if my mother had saw that,
oh yeah,
it was gonna be.
Because you talk about your mother. Just give us a little bit about your mother.
My mother didn't play. She didn't play. I knew she didn't play. And I knew that if I told her something like that, it would take a whole nother toll. I ain't want nobody hurting him. I didn't want my uncles. She would have called my uncles, you know, and it would have just been a whole thing. And I didn't want that. And then I didn't want her to tell me to stop seeing them.
Right.
And I knew that that's what would have happened. My mother ended up being murdered shortly after I had my first child. I think he was about 6 months old when there was a beef. We lived on, for those who are in Milwaukee, we lived on 10th and Locust. And she had a disagreement with a friend, and that friend happened to move on the same block that we were living on, not knowing. They had stopped talking, but not knowing. And then the beef and the kids. So she had teenage girls, we were teenage girls, and we were beefing with each other's kids. And then
it just got big.
The parents got involved, and they met in the middle of the street, and the woman came out and she shot her in the stomach. And so she hung in there for about a week, and then she died of a blood clot. So that made me cling to the abuser even more. So now I really don't have a support system, you know. Now I feel like it's me and him against the world.
I think it's important what you just shared, that we kind of reiterate the point that trauma will cause you to cling. And so you have to be, you know, we as women have to be really mindful about how we go through things, because things are going to happen. Trauma will happen. And we have to almost work really hard to keep our mind in the perfect place, that we don't cling to something that is toxic for us. Because you went to what was available.
So here's the thing. I remember social workers, I was supposed to go to counseling. So I was a teenager, and they were sending us to counseling, and I wouldn't go. I would catch the bus and wouldn't go to counseling. I would catch the bus and go to his house.
I see. Okay.
He was my counselor.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like I was talking to him, and that's all I needed to talk to. I didn't need to talk to.
Because he had already hooked you.
Yep.
In your mind.
And even within the culture of Black families, I'm like, I don't want to talk to a stranger. Like, I wasn't, you know, I didn't know about counseling, what that really meant, and how that would have helped me in such a way that I know now. And so I was doing what was comforting for me at the time, but not knowing that it was hurting me. And so with having that loss, it was a loss after a loss after a loss. And so and he was really great during that time when I lost my mother. Like, he was amazing. And so that just made me fall more and more in love with him. Like, this is this is him. He's the guy. He is the one. And so there's a chapter in there called The Knight in Shining Armor, I think it is. But he was during that time. But when we finally moved out on our own. The babies kept coming. You know, I kept getting pregnant. The more babies coming, the more depressed I became, and the more violent he became. And I would leave. I knew this wasn't right. I knew there was more to life than me, and I knew and I stayed 13 years, and just shy of being 30 years old, you know. So my entire adolescence pretty much was with this abusive relationship. So I'm trying to raise kids that, a kid raising a kid. I'm letting Oprah help me raise them. I always say Oprah,
You talk
like
about
she
that
would
in the
have the little,
book.
she would have some little shows and stuff on, and some of them would resonate me. The only reason I really couldn't always connect is because I always felt like I was so much younger than the women that they were portraying on TV, and they were always white women. They weren't women of color. So when it was like Housewives, I remember her having a show on domestic abuse, but they were white house women, housewives.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going through that, but they don't look like me.
And it's so funny, the importance of, because, we're more quote unquote woke now.
Right.
So now we're realizing how important it is for our young people to see themselves.
Right.
Because you were actually learning or getting what you need, but you didn't think it applied to you because you didn't see yourself in it.
I didn't.
You just knew that the scenarios came across familiar.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it was. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going through, and they getting out of it, but they might be getting out of it because they're white with husbands, because I wasn't married to him. They're white, they're older, and they have husbands, so there's probably different rules for if you're married that you can get help. And it just, so all those things, I'm trying to understand it in my mind. And so the first time I went to a shelter was with Sojourner, and it just was, wasn't the ideal situation. It was extremely scary, but that was probably the first time I had felt sort of safe in a long time. Like if I go to sleep, I don't have to worry about somebody waking me up because you want to argue and fight. That was one of those times. So that didn't last long. And so, because you start thinking, okay, the loneliness sits in, he starts talking, and that honeymoon stage comes back again. You're like, okay, I want him to read to, and it's harder. It's a little bit more difficult when you got kids too, because you want your kids to have a relationship with their father. And so it just was progressively, I got stronger. So I left. It says women will leave 7 to 9 times before they leave for good.
Wow.
And I left 7 times.
Well, then you were kind, because I didn't even see that many times in the book. I mean, I saw a few.
There's a part 2, but there was definitely I left a good 7 times. And stayed with relatives, stayed in shelters, bouncing around with my kids.
And can I make this one point? In my study of this, I found, because I want to encourage people how brave it is to leave. Because according to statistics, they often say that women who leave are 70 times more likely to be killed.
Absolutely.
By the user. And so we may point our finger at, you need to leave, but you're not there. And you can, like, I can hear about a fight, but to experience the fight is totally different. So that victim knows the rage of the abuser.
I never got caught leaving, thankfully, but when I tell you the fear, think about the scariest thing you've ever encountered. Times 10. That somebody, if he walks through this door and sees me trying to leave with these kids, it's over for me. It's over for me. Because if I thought he was enraged before, if he caught me in the act of leaving, I knew it would have taken him to a different place as well. And I would not have made it out there. So even when I'm talking to women or young girls, it's like, everybody always says you have to have a plan. You really have to have a plan.
Right.
Now, nobody's saying you have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank account. Nobody's saying that. What I like to say is you got to have a bare minimum. Make sure that you have the documents. If you have kids, make sure you got all those documents together, because what will happen is and nowadays you can get those documents, meaning birth certificates, social security cards, and those things. And for school records, you can get that stuff online. So make sure you have that kind of stuff, so you don't have to maneuver around the city and possibly run into that person until you can get your bearings. Clothes, the essential clothes items, making sure you got a support system outside, whether that is family or a shelter. Make sure that support system outside is good, and make sure that people know what you're trying to do and you're not moving around blindly where nobody knows what you're doing and nobody knows to be looking for you if something happens. You know, you want to just, and I've done that. I've moved and gone to shelters and didn't tell anybody that I was doing that. And that wasn't the smartest and the safest thing. But that goes back to that, that judgment, not wanting people to know, that shame, that, oh, she going back again. She left. And don't nobody want to hear all that. She calling, talking about she leaving them again. Nobody wants to hear what's going on with her because she just going to go back. So then you just stop telling people. You just keep moving around and trying to save your life the best way that you know how to save your life. And so just, there's things out there, there's people out there, or great organizations out in the areas that make sure that, and online, just make sure there's steps that you're taking before you actually make that move. Because I do think, I mean, I got out of it, but there's so many women that didn't make it, because that is a truly high time if you get caught trying to leave.
Now, because I know you work with women that go through this, I know you know your story, but you've also seen and heard so many other ones. Yeah. Can we talk about how the abuser is not slotted as one particular type of person?
Oh, yes.
He can show up in many forms. I think that would be helpful, especially on a platform such as this, because you may have a pastor's wife listening. You may have a doctor's wife listening, a political person, or, just a regular old guy, the best neighbor on the block.
Yep.
But he can show up in any form. He doesn't have a certain kind of face.
He doesn't look. Domestic violence does not discriminate.
Okay.
And so it don't matter how much money you got. It doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't matter who you know. None of that. Everybody has the ability to be abused, and everybody has that ability to be abusers. Speaking of pastor's wife, I had encountered two different women. I had an event a couple years ago of like a roundtable discussion around men because I wanted to know what men thought about other men who abuse. And I really wanted to know. So we had a panel discussion about that. And there was a woman who came that day. Her divorce was final. She was a pastor's wife. And she was getting divorced. It was her divorce was final that day, but she wanted to come to this event to talk to me about how she didn't get help in the church. How she didn't get help in the church. And when she went to other pastors, they just sent them to counseling to other pastors, but they were giving him passes and saying, you guys need to get more into the word, and saying, so they basically was still hand feeding her to him to go back to him. And so I wish that she would write that book that she said she had in her, because that's a whole other area of abuse, and that's spiritual abuse.
It's real.
That is a real thing.
Yeah.
The other woman is very well known in the city, and she came to me, and she was going to be one of the survivors in an event that I was having. And she was and I kept saying to her, are you sure you want to do this? Because her husband is still here, and you was getting ready to out him, and he's a known pastor. And I'm like, you getting ready to out him. Are you sure you want to do this? And at the end, she decided not to do it. And I'm glad she didn't. Decided not to do it, because I don't know that she was ready for the backlash that she was gonna get, not him, that she was gonna get, because you have to strengthen yourself up for what comes to you with that. So she what it was with her and her marriage is the pastor was they went to another pastor for guidance. and he told them he shouldn't do that. But they never, she said the problem that she had was he was never made accountable. He still held the position in the pulpit. He was still leader. He was still running things in a leadership role. Like, so if you know behind closed doors that this pastor or minister or deacon in the church is doing this, why do they still get to hold their position?
That's the funny thing, and I think that's one of the things that make people deter from, church or spiritual guidance or whatever, because it's like, if we don't hold people accountable. I believe that the altar, God, Jesus Christ, his kingdom is a refuge, but the church building shouldn't be a refuge for people that's doing wrong.
Right.
Meaning we have to hold people accountable. That's how you show love. When you tell them, hey, this not
and we're not, and I'm not saying that you throw them out of church. I'm not saying you kick them out of church, because that's you need that. They
need help.
The ones who know the Bible, the ones who are doing what they're supposed to be doing, they don't need the help. They got this. The ones who having some struggles are the ones who need to be there. But do you need to be there in that leadership role where you're supposed to be guiding and supporting other people, and you ain't got it together? Like but that's a whole other, like, I really am looking for, I can't wait till that woman or those women who are brave enough to take on the churches on domestic abuse. And so my abuse and my experience wasn't there. So that's not something that I can touch, but it's, but I've talked to many women from the church who have said that this has been their experience. And I think they definitely need the support and somebody, that leadership that's saying, girl, I see you, I hear you, I know what you've been going through and how you possibly didn't feel supported in the one place that you're supposed to feel the most supported. And so it comes in different lights. Like I've been in, like I was on a committee team, and it was a white woman, a wealthy white woman, and she was an attorney, and she said that she used to defend women who had been abused, and she used to think, why do you keep going back? If you being abused, leave them, and why do you keep coming back? And here she is in a whole marriage. Here she is. And so she had spoke to us as a group and just was saying that's how she judged clients. And here she was in a whole marriage where he was being abusive, where she thought she was exempt from it because she felt like she was smart enough to not get caught up in a web of a man being deceitful and manipulative. And
you talked about support. I wanted you just to share the value of Margaret.
Oh my
God. Now she
make me cry, girl.
When I tell you, I wanted to make sure I was in this story. I was, and I knew we were going to go into another area, but I didn't want to miss Margaret. I think she is most valuable. So if you could just give me a few moments of Miss Margaret.
Girl, you're gonna make me cry.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
She blessed me while she was blessing you.
Margaret was like the big mama of our family. Like everybody loved her, the neighbors loved her. I mean, everybody went to her for stuff. But when she was with you and talking with you, it felt like you were the only person in the world that she was focused on in that moment. I don't care how many times I left. Margaret hugged, loved on me, she took every phone call. She did not ignore me. If she could help, if she couldn't come get me, she was making arrangements for somebody else to come pick me up and take me where I needed to go. Even when I would go back and he would come over for a family picnic or something, she never treated him differently. She did not like him, but she knew by treating him differently and making him uncomfortable in that space.
Cut off access.
Yeah. She knew that. I didn't even really know that. I just was like, she being super nice to him, but I later understood why she was doing that. And I just was like, this woman was everything. Cause she supported me. She always told me how smart I was. She always told me how beautiful I was. She was like, always told me how much of a good mother I was being, when, you know, all those things that were insecurities for me, she was always continuing to build them up. So I would call and talk about what I'm not doing right, or I feel like I'm failing in this. And then she would pull out that one good thing of what I said and amplify it. And, or if I had some good news that I brought to her, like I'm telling you, you thought I won the lottery or something, because she just made it so grand of an accomplishment. And even going back, but having those things poured into you, because that's important. So if the negative is being poured and you're continuing to be fed the negative things about yourself and what's going on, and never getting any positive feedback, it will destroy you. And those little pours back that she would, positive pour backs that she would give me, was everything. It was balancing me. It was helping build me to get stronger and stronger to say, I'm done. I'll never forget the last and final time I left. I went to her house. I dropped the kids off at school. I started crying because he called, and I actually was strong enough not to answer his call. Even when I was gone, I would just be like, I'm still feel like I need to answer his call. But I went to her house, and I swear I cried in her lap for like 2 hours. So I was she was in the chair, I was in the living room. I was on the floor, just had my face buried in her lap. And people were coming over, and she would just be talking to them, and my face, and she just would be rubbing my back. She was just rubbing my back. She all right. People like, she okay? She all right. And you know, and then they leave on out or whatever. But she never broke stride until I lifted up my face and said, I didn't need that no. You know, I was done crying. Like, she never was like, oh, let me talk to this person. That it's undescribable, the feeling I had. And I knew at that moment I wasn't never going back. And I knew that Margaret was that woman, that person in my life that believed in me and loved me more than I loved and believed in myself.
Goodness.
And she was just the one person. Now, you have family members who love you, family members who support you, but it's one thing to say I love you, but it's another thing to show time after time after time that you're going to make it through this. And she always said to me, when you get tired, you'll leave. She just was like, when you get tired, you'll leave. You ain't tired yet. She would say, you ain't tired yet. You ain't tired yet. But when you tired, you'll leave. And after that cry, she said, you tired yet? I think you might be tired now. And I'm like, I'm tired, Margaret. I'm tired. And so, and that was the last time I left.
Wow.
I mean, every time after all my little accomplishments and stuff, after being gone and trying to get my footing together in a new apartment with the kids and what school my kids go to, she was just always there. I just couldn't have done it without her. I just couldn't have done it without her. Everybody needs a Margaret in their life. Oh my God.
Right. I was just going to say that. Everybody needs a Margaret. Everybody. You could just write a story on her from the little bit that you put in here. I felt like I knew a Margaret. Or I'm like, oh, I want to make sure I am a Margaret. I want to be.
Right. And so many people can tell the same type of story that I just told about Margaret. Because she did that for so many people. I felt like I was special. I was special, but she was caring and doing those same things for other women. Like, I have friends who have met Margaret And when she passed away, it was just as great as a loss for them, because she embraced them as if they were family, talked to them, no chaser. You know, if you come to her with some advice, you need some advice, you're going to get it straight with no chaser, you know.
I love it. I love it.
And so I miss her dearly. Her anniversary death just was a few days ago. So
God bless her soul.
Bless her.
So I know that we've spent a lot of time on this, but I think it's important. I wanted you to expose this real thing that's going on,
right?
And expose it to the point where it doesn't matter your race, your background, your financial position, any of that.
Nothing.
Anybody could be a part of that. But I also want you to share your freedom. Tell us about your babies, and tell us who Richard is.
So the freedom. So once I was gone for good, there's a period, a transitional period. Like you still feeling insecure, you still feeling like you can't do this thing called life without this person. But then on the other side, you seeing these glimpses of hope and life and what life can be and stuff. And you trying to get fully over there, but you still got that residue of being abused. But once you go over, and I call that, so you go from victim, survivor, thriver. Those are the three components. Victim is you're in it. Survivor is I got out of it and I'm just trying to live. And thriver is when you take on the experiences and you thrive and you continue to do all the things that person said you couldn't do.
My gosh.
Whether that is finishing school, going to school, raising your babies, getting a career, starting a business, all those things he said you couldn't do, or you felt like you couldn't do because of that person, that's thriver mode. And Richard helped me get into thriver mode. So I had dated a couple years before I met Richard, but he was so patient. He was the opposite of what I had been seeing. So I didn't have a whole lot of experience in dating, but I knew it wasn't this. I was experiencing.
It might not be this, but I know it ain't that.
Right.
Yeah.
So he was he was patient. He was always complimentary. He never wanted anything from me. There was no expectation of what he wanted from me. He never shied away from that I had 4 kids, because that was the other thing, is that you'll never get somebody that with 4 kids. Somebody wants you and going to help raise 4 kids, or if they are, they're going to be trying to rape your daughters, trying to molest your daughters because they're not their biological father. And so those things used to come in my head, like I just don't want any men around my kids because I just didn't trust it. But every conversation, he used to write me these amazing letters and via email. I got them I have to do that one day. I can't because I'm moving. I printed off these emails. He used to send me these emails every day, every other day. And it's about to stack this big. And it's in my closet right now. And I said, one of these days I'm going to have to have somebody put those in a journal, type those up and put them in a journal for me. But anyway, so he used to do little things like that. It just was never forced. It was never forced. And he just really was a friend. He just really was a friend that eventually I wanted to be more than, because he just was reaching me in a different way. And so I was able to tell him some of the things that I wanted. He encouraged those things. He wasn't perfect. He definitely wasn't perfect, but he was just like everything I felt like I was praying to God for. And I wasn't praying for God to send me a guy with money. I was praying for a guy who was going to be kind,
right,
that wasn't going to be abusive to me or my kids, that he was going to be a provider, that he wasn't, just going to be disrespectful to me. That's what I got. That's what I got. And so He
Go
came.
Richard. Go Richard.
Richard is definitely he's God sent, and Margaret loved him.
Oh,
Margaret loved her some Richard, and he loved him some Margaret. So, I'm glad she was.
How are you? Oh, I know your kids are grown now, but how are they?
Yeah, everybody good there. So it's my 4. So it's funny because the 2 older kids they've seen more. Mm-hmm. They saw more. Mm-hmm. So in their personalities, I can see the effects of being in an abusive relationship with their dad. The younger 2, I can see it as well because they both have both of our personalities. Mm-hmm. And so, but all in all, they're good. They have good hearts. They thrive and they do the best that they can do and live in this life. Mm-hmm. And I just love I love my babies, and they got babies, and so we got a bunch of grandkids. It's a bunch of grandkids out here, and so we're a blended family. So Richard came into the relationship with 4. I have 4, so we have 8 kids.
Y'all doing it.
8 kids and 12 grandkids, girl.
Oh my God! And I'm crying over 3. I'm crying. I ain't doing nothing. I ain't doing nothing in life.
What, girl? But I'm like, they like, well, Mom, when are you gonna sit down and
Not right now.
I'm sorry, I can't rock the babies. I can't.
Tell me, because I don't want to go without talking about like a lot of the initiatives that you got. I want you to tell us about your podcast. Tell us how we can get your book. Tell us what you're doing this month in regards to the recognition of domestic violence. All of that. Yes.
So the book you can get at the website www.exposedwithlaverneandnatalie.com. So people can go to our website and they can grab the book from there.
Expose the podcast.
Yeah. EXPOSEDTHEPODCAST.
Where you rock with another queen that I love.
Yes. So I'm a co-host, co-founder of Exposed Podcast with Natalie Hayden, who is also a thriver.
Yes.
After abuse. And so hence, it's after abuse. Exposed Podcast was birthed as a platform to have discussions about life after domestic abuse. So we talk about scenarios about that, some that we've gone through, because Natalie is younger, and so she has she still is co-parenting with her abuser, and I've been out of my abusive situation. So we have different scenarios, experiences, and stuff that we sometimes talk about, but we want to focus on life after abuse because that we want to grab that individual that's in survivor mode, like I'm out of it, but not what do I do with my life afterwards? Like you can go to school, girl, you can do what you want to do afterwards. What does dating look like? People don't tell you how rough dating is, and how dating can go real left when you go from an abusive relationship and you trying to figure out new relationships, because some women without the right tools end up in another abusive relationship. So so let's talk about those things and what healthy relationships look like and unhealthy relationships. So we're talking about all of that. We're talking about the fun stuff, stuff that happens in my marriage, stuff that triggers. We're talking about triggers. We're talking about what's going on in the culture around domestic abuse. Everything we're talking about just kind of circles and centers around how you can still be amazing and inspiring and encouraging. It does even after abuse. And so you don't have to be what you've been through. What you've gone through does not define who you become. It's just it's a story just to be told. Okay. And so that's what Exposed the Podcast. And we're on all platforms as podcasting. So Spotify, Google Play. So you can find us Exposed the Podcast. So that all has to be spelled out. Not just some people just be like Exposed, but it's Exposed the Podcast. Okay. Yeah. with LaVerne and Natalie. And so we've been doing that for about 2.5 years now. We just kicked it back up, and we took a summer break, and we just kicked it back up October, because October is Domestic Violence Month. And so speaking of, next week, October 17th, we are hosting our first annual walk. And we are so excited about this.
That's what's up.
Everybody is coming out. I'm just like, I'm like, oh, they said they were coming? Oh, they said they were coming?
Oh, man, I hope I can come. It's my anniversary. So I don't know. The actual 17th is my day. So I don't know if I plan on it. But if I plan,
you get a pass.
But if it starts later that day, I definitely will be there.
It's early. It's actually early in the day. So registration will be there by 7:45. Registration will go through to about 8:45. The walks, to 8 o'clock. Then we'll have some speakers, and we're actually honoring a family. And so part of each event is to make sure that we honor a family who lost somebody to domestic abuse. This particular family, the victim her name is Shannon Manny. Beautiful girl. And she lost her life last year. Her boyfriend killed her, and she was pregnant. And he stabbed and shot her, stuffed her in a suitcase. It just was a horrific story. But I met her mom at a commissions meeting, and her mom, Ashu, was amazing. And so she's becoming an advocate based on what happened to her family, and she's willing to talk about it and shed some light. But I wanted to give her a platform to shine some beautiful light on her baby girl, and let the world know who she was, in addition to trying to say, this is what we're doing. This is why we do what we do, to avoid families to have to experience this type of loss. I couldn't even imagine. I couldn't.
Who would have thought that what happened to you will put you right here where you can be able to help so many other women? Who would have thought that?
Not me.
I know. When you start this story off, you just a young girl just trying to find your way. And all that time, purpose was trying to be beaten out of you, but it was actually being built in you.
Because I never wanted to talk about it. I'm like, nobody needs to know what went on with me. I'm good now. I was married now, and with a new healthy relationship, I'm in a career that I enjoy. No one needs to know that part of my life. And God just kept regurgitating that up in me.
You can't keep quiet.
I just was like, one day, no. My husband didn't even know all the details. He knew I had been in an abusive relationship. He never asked questions. He never needed to know the details. He never asked me the details. He just was like, I'm not that guy. And so he found out through the book. The details, because I was even embarrassed to say the words out loud of some of the things that had happened to me, to him.
But I'm sure that took y'all love to another level too.
It did.
Yeah, he wanted to nurture and take care of you.
Yes, it made him want to protect me more.
Yeah.
It made him understand me more, because there's some things that I would do that were triggers. I didn't even realize was triggers, but he like, why are you so holding on to these kids so tight? Why are you, like I felt like I was doing everything for him and being overprotective and overpowering and controlling in every aspect of my life, because I didn't want to have that loss of control anymore. Like when you have no control over your life at all, somebody else is running the show. It took an opposite turn for me. It's like, no, I ain't never going to be out of control ever again. But it was not always positive. And so I eventually had to learn how to allow other people, and including my husband, to have control and to help me, and it's okay to trust people in certain areas. And so those are it's a roller coaster. But I think that as an advocate, I just want to continue to talk to women and young girls to be able to say, you know, I understand where you're going through. I understand what you're doing, but I'm going to tell you, baby girl, and I say this to anybody who is listening, we can't change abusers. Abusers have to change abusers. So if he's saying that he's a different person and didn't go get real help, he is not going to change. You're going to get the same result. You know, we try to love them through their pain, because abusers are just hurt men.
Hurt people that's hurting
people. Hurt people. But, and that's what keeps us there, is because we're like, oh, he hurt, his mama wasn't there, he went through this and he went through that, and we just gonna love him enough through that pain. And but it don't.
We're trying to be a savior.
We can't save them.
It's only one savior.
Yes.
Yeah. I am so grateful that you did not mind sharing your story. I'm glad you didn't close your mouth.
Thank you.
I'm glad.
Now you can't keep me quiet, girl.
Yeah, I know. But I love it. I love it. And I appreciate it. And I know that so often, you know, like you were saying, I don't think I'm going to say anything about it. I'm just going to move on and just do well. But so often, because you speak, it frees somebody else. Your voice is actually unlocking somebody's chain now. And so I'm grateful for that. So I just want to encourage people. First of all, you got to get her book, Overcoming the Darkness, and it's surviving domestic violence. I love how you don't call yourself a victim. You're surviving domestic violence. This is LaVerne Badger.
Thank you.
Also, you got to check out the podcast. These are some awesome, you know, I love these ladies.
Me and Natalie, we get together and it's a whole mess.
It's a whole vibe. It's a whole vibe.
There's
helping, but you're going to enjoy being helped the whole time.
Yes, yes. And your baby girl, we love her.
Thank
Krista
you. I know.
amazing.
She love y'all.
She is amazing.
For being a part of her village.
Yes. She brings light to our, she is, that girl has been here before.
I know. She thinks she's running me. She's such a boss. She is such a boss.
But you and your husband have done an amazing job.
Thank you, girl. God, glory to God. But you know, we got a story, so you know
everybody does.
Yeah,
everybody does.
God is kind. He'll make up the difference when you, like you said, when you were young, you didn't know a lot, and he'll do some things for you when you can't do for yourself. So I just want to make sure I just remind people that I don't want us as women to miss our opportunities to be enriched, you know, and it don't mean you got to move right away, but at least learn and see what's available to you. So we got the book, we got Expose the podcast, and then October 17th.
Yes, October 17th.
Go to Veterans, the website, exposedwithlaverneandnatalie.com. Go to the website, hear about this walk, join in. I think it's going to be most valuable. I appreciate you. I'm glad. I'm glad,
girl. When this COVID is over, I'm looking for my hugs.
Oh yeah, I got it for you. And to hear Richard give his take on everything.
Yes. Soon Richard will have a platform. We did a podcast, a short podcast.
Did you?
Dating a survivor of a victim or survivor of domestic abuse, because that's it's a little rough to love somebody.
I can only imagine. I believe it. But I'm telling you, you have helped us.
Thank you. I appreciate you, girl.
I appreciate you. You are just, I mean, when we started talking, you know, you just lit up.
Oh.
For somebody that's saying what you didn't want to talk about,
I know. It does, because I just feel like, you know, people need to understand that it was an experience, but the place that I'm in right now, you can't even describe the freedom that you feel when you're out of an abusive relationship.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine. So
I don't have nothing to complain about. I don't wake up thinking that somebody is trying to kill me on a daily basis, you know.
Man, those stats were amazing. They were saying, like, you leave and sometimes it puts you in more danger.
It's more danger because now you have to maneuver around the city, usually the same city. Most people aren't leaving and going out of state. You maneuvering around in the same city. and to run into that person. You know, the lady just this past when was that? Last fall, my woman who was killed at 27th and
was that the
is that
one found in
Center
the
at Walgreens? At Walgreens, the abuser came to Walgreens
he just
while
walked
she
up
was
in
at
there.
work. Yep. So you can't even go to work. I'm telling you, I had a job too, and it's just like I'm afraid. Like I was working in Brookfield. I had an restraining order, and I had to give a restraining order to the Brookfield police. But going to my car at 5 o'clock at night, where in the winter is dark, was scary. You know, just walking from the door. Once I was inside the building, I felt a little secure. But as time went on, you started hearing stories about abusers going straight into the building.
Yeah, you know, I'm not saying I had compassion on them, because I don't in that way. I mean, I know I should, but I was just like, what got to be in your mind that you just think you got a right to just kill somebody? Because now it seems like they're so bold. It's just like, yep, I'm doing this, and I don't care what happens.
I don't care what happens.
It's about getting her first.
Right. So the shift is, and I've always stated my mission as saying that if we're going to change domestic abuse, we need to get men involved.
Yes. Okay.
We can't do I can't think like a man. I don't know what triggers the ego, how a man's ego works. I think that to end domestic abuse, they need to start talking more to abusers. Now you got to start having more empathy for abusers and having conversations with them to say, what takes you from the point of loving this person to say, she don't want to be with me no more, so now I got to take her out.
Wow.
Like how do you go from
what makes you think you owe that? But you know, talking to my husband, and then I am going to let you go. I know you got things to do, but it just, listening to this conversation just had me thinking even more. I'm not lying. And when my husband, when he gets mad, and sometimes he just gets so mad, I'm like, what is in you that when you get mad, he just said, you just feel like you don't have no control, so you like forget it. And so, you know, it just, of course, it takes discipline, maturity, and all of that to be able to handle that. He can handle it, but then just thinking of somebody that they can't handle it.
They can't handle it. When did it become that men can't handle rejection?
Yes.
What is going on with our young and older people, but our younger generation? Because it just seemed like this happening younger and younger.
But I think
they can't handle the rejection of being without a person they didn't walk away from. It's one thing you say,
it's
I'm
about
done
raising.
with you.
Yeah. It's a raising.
So it's a combination of upbringing, environment, mental state, all of that to come together. But if we're not talking to them and trying to figure out, and I believe they should go to jail, and they should go to jail for the rest of their lives, but somebody still needs to be talking to them to figure out. And I'm sure there's probably some research out there that's happening, but that is definitely one of the things that in the bigger domestic violence organizations, I wish that there was funding to be able to do some research and figuring out why they feel the need to take somebody's life, why they can't let go. But it's not, we can continue to raise our daughters to be educated against domestic abuse.
But you gotta raise them boys too, though.
You gotta raise them boys.
You gotta raise them boys. And you know the saying, we love our boys and raise our daughters.
Yeah.
We actually need to love our daughters and raise our boys.
Raise our boys. Yeah.
Because you know, they're you said it best, they're not used to rejection. Hip hop shows them that they get to have whatever they want and do whatever they, you know, it's a whole lot. It's a whole lot of that. Or, you know, I remember my son told me one time, you know, I'm a good guy. I mean, they got, you know, they're worse out there, and it might be true, but that don't mean you still get a right to be wrong in certain areas.
Right.
Just because you don't do this don't mean that that is okay either.
Right. Or just because you don't do this.
Yes.
You're not supposed to do that. You shouldn't get a pass.
Right.
Or you should get a prize because you're doing the right thing.
Girl.
You know, and
girl, we can talk about that all day.
but they have all these options. They do. They have these options. And you are so on point, and I'm guilty of loving my son as well. And versus I'm not a man, so I did, and I was young, and I didn't know. I know positive male reinforcement is extremely important, and my son I didn't have that for him.
Of
One,
course,
because I didn't trust men, especially after their dad. We broke up. I didn't trust men, and I wasn't just going to have anybody around, but I didn't understand the importance of that at the time. I just really didn't. And so if you have young boys and if you have a positive role model, a male role model, make they're being exposed to it if their dad's not around.
Expose the podcast.
Yes.
I love that. Every time I just love it. And I love how I love how y'all rock.
People look at it,
how y'all rock. I do.
Yeah, and we came up with Exposed in a way of we not exposing all the myths. We exposing the facts. We exposing these men out here who look good on paper, but you're behind closed doors acting a plum fool and with your wives or your girlfriends. We exposing. Yes, we're exposing all of that. And we can't keep quiet no more.
We better not. Because somebody dying. People are dying. So.
Yes. And then we're telling our men too, you know, if your guy is treating women or he hitting or he is mentally abusing his girlfriend and they come in the barbershop and they talking to you about it, what you gonna do? Are you gonna say something?
Now see that's real.
Are you gonna say something, or are you gonna, because that was our roundtable discussion, is it viewed that if I say something, then it's going to look at like he think I'm trying to get at his girl because I'm trying to say, man, you know, you shouldn't treat her like that. You know, oh, this Negro trying to get at my woman, so I'm going to need to stop messing around with him. Or he goes home and make it worse for his girl. Oh, so-and-so.
Right.
So-and-so, so-and-so was just talking about you. What's that about? You know what I'm saying?
What's that about?
Yeah, has nothing to do with nothing. But you got some men that will just say it. But others will be like, I'm not gonna get caught up in that. That's that man's business. And we're trying to say it's not just his business, it's our business. If it was your daughter or your mama, wouldn't you want somebody to say something?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I done wrote all of the book. It was good, but I'm serious. Thank you.
I'm always so humble when somebody reads it. I'm telling you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm proud of you. I'm excited for you. And thank you. You done blessed my life today. You blessed. That's all I'm gonna tell you. You done blessed my life. You take care.